Welcome to GhostMire, where every night a new horror story drags you deeper than the last. Before anything else, hit subscribe right now. If you miss even one night, you'll miss the piece that connects all these stories into something far darker. Comment below where you're watching from and what time it is. I want to know exactly who's awake inside the dark with us, and listen carefully. This story has something hidden. A moment so disturbing, so unexpected that most people don't recognize it until the very end. If you leave early, you'll never know what really happened. So stay with me, all the way to the final second. Story number 1, the breathing cargo. Marcus Chen had been hauling refrigerated freight for 12 years, mostly produce and meat from processing plants across the Midwest. The Nebraska route was his bread and butter, straight shot from Omaha to Kansas City, reliable pay, no complications. He'd picked up thousands of loads without incident, which is why the dispatch call on November 14, 2019 seemed completely routine. The warehouse sat just outside Grand Island, one of those sprawling industrial complexes that appear overnight in flat prairie land. Marcus backed his rig up to Base 7 at exactly 2:47 a.m., watching in his mirrors as two workers in stained coveralls loaded pallets wrapped in thick black plastic. The shipping manifest listed the cargo as organic materials for medical research, not unusual for refrigerated transport. The temperature gauge read 34 degrees Fahrenheit. He signed the papers, secured the trailer, and pulled onto Interstate 80 heading south. The first hour passed normally. Light traffic, clear roads, the diesel engine's familiar rumble. Marcus had his CB radio tuned to channel 19, listening to scattered chatter from other drivers. Around mile marker 287, somewhere between Aurora and York, he noticed the reefer unit was cycling more frequently than normal, working harder to maintain temperature. He checked the thermostat, still showing 34 degrees, but the compressor sounded strained, almost labored. That's when he heard it through the cab's rear wall. A rhythmic sound, soft but distinct, like breathing. Marcus turned down the radio, listening. The sound continued, a slow, measured inhalation and exhalation that seemed to sync with the reefer unit's cycling. He told himself it was mechanical, just air moving through refrigeration coils. Trucks make strange noises. 12 years of experience should have made him immune to paranoia. But the breathing didn't sound mechanical. He pulled into a rest area near Henderson, intending to check the trailer. The parking lot was empty except for a single RV at the far end. Marcus grabbed his flashlight and walked around back, his breath fogging in the cold air. He pressed his ear against the trailer's aluminum skin. The breathing was louder here, deeper, and there was something else. A wet, organic quality to it, like air moving through fluid-filled lungs. He could feel vibrations through the metal, a subtle rhythmic pulsing that traveled up through his hand when he touched the door. Marcus's hands shook as he reached for the seal lock. Company policy was clear: never open a sealed trailer. Doing so could cost him his job, his CDL, everything. But that sound, that impossibly biological sound coming from what should have been sterile cargo, made policy seem irrelevant. The seal broke with a plastic snap. He turned the handle and pulled. The door swung open and a wave of cold air hit him, carrying a smell that made his stomach clench. Not rot exactly, but something organic and wrong. The pallets were stacked 6 high, all wrapped in that opaque black plastic. In the dim interior light, he could see the plastic moving, not fluttering from the air current, moving with deliberate expansion and contraction. Breathing. Every single pallet was breathing. Marcus stumbled backward, his flashlight beam dancing across the cargo. The plastic stretched outward, held, then deflated in perfect unison. The whole trailer inhaled and exhaled together like a single massive organism. He could see shapes beneath the wrapping, irregular lumps that pressed against the plastic from inside, creating bulges that looked disturbingly anatomical. His CB radio crackled from the cab. A voice, distorted and barely intelligible, said, "Return the cargo. Do not open. Return the cargo." Marcus ran to the cab, breath coming in ragged gasps. He grabbed the CB handset, but the frequency was dead static. He tried his cell phone. No signal, despite being in range of Henderson's towers. The dashboard clock showed 4:23 a.m., but his watch read 2:51 a.m., frozen at the exact time he'd left the warehouse. The breathing from the trailer grew louder, faster, like something waking up. Through his mirrors, Marcus could see the trailer itself beginning to move, rocking slightly on its suspension as the cargo shifted inside. The temperature gauge flickered wildly between 34 and 98 degrees. He made a decision born of pure terror. Marcus released the fifth wheel lock, disconnecting the trailer in the middle of the rest area. The airline hoses jerked free with a hiss of compressed air. He shifted into gear and pulled forward, leaving the breathing cargo behind. Watching in his mirrors as the abandoned trailer continued to rock and sway like something alive, he drove straight to the nearest way station, 23 miles down I-80. The state trooper there listened to his story with obvious skepticism, but agreed to send a unit to investigate. Marcus waited in the station parking lot, drinking terrible vending machine coffee and giving his statement. The call came back 2 hours later. The rest area was empty. No trailer, no tire marks in the gravel where it should have been. The trooper who'd checked the location said the security cameras showed Marcus's truck pulling in alone and leaving alone. No trailer attached at any point. Marcus's employer fired him for abandoning cargo and filing a false police report. The shipping company claimed they had no record of a pickup in Grand Island that night. No manifest for organic materials, no warehouse at the address on his paperwork. His logbook showed he'd driven empty from Omaha to the way station. But Marcus knows what he hauled. He can still hear it sometimes late at night when he's trying to sleep. That slow, wet breathing perfectly synchronized across dozens of pallets. He never drove refrigerated freight again. Some cargo shouldn't be transported. Some things are meant to stay wherever they come from, breathing in the dark. Story number 2, the mile marker loop. Sarah Vega had been driving regional routes through West Texas for 8 years when she encountered the road that refused to end. The night of March 7, 2021 started routinely enough. A load of industrial equipment from El Paso to Midland via Highway 54, a desolate stretch of asphalt cutting through desert emptiness. She'd made this run dozens of times, always at night to avoid the brutal daytime heat. She passed through Van Horn around midnight, topped off her fuel, and headed northeast. The highway stretched ahead in perfect straightness, mile markers clicking past with metronomic regularity. Mile 41, mile 42, mile 43. The headlights carved a tunnel through absolute darkness, revealing nothing but pavement and the occasional creosote bush. At mile marker 47, Sarah noticed something odd. The marker looked freshly painted, the reflective white numbers gleaming unnaturally bright. She'd passed this section countless times. The markers were usually faded and bullet-scarred. She made a mental note but kept driving. Mile 48. Mile 49, mile 50, then mile 47 again. Sarah blinked, thinking exhaustion was playing tricks. But the marker was unmistakable, 47 in those same fresh white numbers. She checked her GPS. It showed her location correctly progressing northeast, but when she looked up, the next marker read 48, then 49, then 50, then 47. The loop was impossibly smooth, no sensation of turning, no banking of the road, no visual indication of circling back. The highway remained perfectly straight in her headlights, yet somehow she kept passing the same 4-mile markers in sequence. 47, 48, 49, 50, 47. Sarah grabbed her CB radio. "This is Big Star Freight. Anybody out there copying?" Static. She tried her cell phone. No signal. The GPS continued showing forward progress, her blue dot moving along Highway 54's digital representation. But through the windshield, the mile markers told a different story. She tried speeding up, pushing the truck to 75 miles per hour. Mile 47, 48, 49, 50, 47. The loop continued at the same interval regardless of speed. She tried slowing to 40. Same result. The distance between markers seemed to compress or expand to maintain the pattern. That's when she noticed the other vehicles. A blue sedan passed her, heading in the opposite direction. 5 minutes later, the same sedan passed again. Same license plate, same crack in the windshield. Then a silver pickup truck heading northeast like her. It appeared ahead, disappeared beyond her headlights, then reappeared in her mirrors, somehow behind her again. The vehicles weren't turning around, they were looping just like her. Sarah laid on the horn, trying to signal the other drivers, but they didn't respond. They just drove, faces forward, never acknowledging her or the impossible road. At mile marker 47, her 16th time passing it, she saw something standing at the roadside. A figure, human-shaped but motionless, watching the traffic loop past. As her headlights swept across it, she glimpsed a highway patrol uniform, but the face was wrong. Not wrong in any specific way she could articulate, just fundamentally wrong, like a photograph that doesn't quite capture 3 dimensions correctly. The figure appeared at the next loop, and the next. Always at mile marker 47, always watching, always slightly closer to the road. Sarah's fuel gauge showed 3/4 full. She'd been driving for over 2 hours since Van Horn, consuming fuel normally but making no actual progress. The mathematics were impossible. She calculated that she'd driven approximately 150 miles worth of diesel while covering the same 4-mile stretch repeatedly. She tried stopping. Put the truck in neutral, set the air brakes, turned off the engine. Silence flooded in. The desert darkness beyond her windows was absolute. No stars, no moon, no ambient light. Just void. Then the truck began moving anyway. Not rolling. The brakes were set, the transmission in neutral. But mile marker 48 approached and passed. Then 49, then 50. The truck was being carried along the road like a leaf in a stream, propelled by nothing visible. Sarah's hands gripped the useless steering wheel as the engineless truck maintained exactly 55 miles per hour. At mile marker 47, the figure was now standing in the middle of the highway. Sarah screamed, instinctively jerking the wheel despite having no engine power. The truck didn't respond to steering, rolling straight toward the figure. At the last second, it stepped aside, moved aside, in a motion that didn't look quite like walking. She glimpsed the face directly. The features were human but arranged with mathematical precision, symmetrical to an uncanny degree, like something had learned what humans look like from measurements rather than observation. Her headlights caught words painted on the pavement ahead. "Turn back when you can." But there was no turning back. The road only went forward into the loop. Sarah began seeing other things at the roadside. Abandoned vehicles, some contemporary, some ancient. A Model T Ford, a 50s Studebaker, modern sedans and trucks. All empty, all positioned at mile marker 47 like a collection of specimens. She lost track of the loops. 20, 50. Her watch stopped at 1:47 a.m. The fuel gauge now read empty, though the engine wasn't running. Warning lights flickered on the dashboard in random patterns. Then, during one passage of mile marker 50, a vehicle appeared ahead in the distance, heading toward her, headlights approaching in her lane. A head-on collision seemed inevitable. Sarah had no control, no way to brake or swerve. The lights grew closer, closer. The oncoming vehicle was her own truck. She saw herself in the driver's seat, face frozen in terror. passing herself on an impossible road that somehow contained two versions of the same moment. When the trucks should have collided, there was just a sensation of passing through something membrane-thin. Reality flickered. Sarah felt the engine suddenly running again. She was back in control. Mile marker 51 appeared ahead. Normal, faded, bullet-scarred. The GPS signal returned. Cell service restored. She was through. Sarah drove straight to Midland without stopping, delivered her load, and immediately drove to the company office. She quit that day, refusing to explain beyond. Highway 54 is wrong. A week later, curiosity drove her to research. She found reports scattered across trucker forums and old newspaper archives. Stories of Highway 54 loops dating back to the 1960s. Drivers disappearing for hours or days, reappearing confused, always describing the same 4-mile markers. Some never came out. Their trucks were occasionally found abandoned at mile marker 47, fuel empty, drivers gone. Sarah never drove through West Texas again. Sometimes late at night, she still sees those impossibly fresh numbers in her mind, 47, 48, 49, 50, and wonders if she really escaped, or if she's still looping, and everything since has been the road showing her what she wants to see. Story number 3, the load that gained weight. Trevor Hutchins specialized in oversized loads, the kind of freight that requires special permits and escort vehicles. 23 years hauling heavy machinery, industrial equipment, prefabricated structures. He understood weight distribution, axle loads, bridge capacities. Physics was his profession, which is why the load he picked up in Shreveport, Louisiana on August 12, 2018 violated everything he knew. The shipping order specified 12 tons, well within his flatbed's capacity. The cargo was industrial boring equipment destined for a mining operation in Montana. Trevor watched the forklift load the shrouded machinery at 6 p.m., secured it with chains rated for 20 tons, and pulled onto the weigh station scale. The digital readout showed his truck's gross weight at 42,800 pounds, 12 tons of cargo plus the truck's own weight. Everything legal, everything normal. He collected his paperwork and headed northwest on Interstate 49. 2 hours later, approaching Texarkana, Trevor noticed his truck struggling on an incline that shouldn't have challenged the engine. The RPMs strained higher than they should for this load. He checked his mirrors. The cargo sat properly secured, nothing visibly wrong. Maybe the transmission was slipping. He made a mental note to check it at the next stop. At the Texas-Arkansas border, a DOT inspection station pulled him onto the scale for random weight verification. Trevor wasn't concerned. He'd been legal 2 hours ago. The inspector walked around his flatbed, examining the load, then checked the scale reading. His expression changed. "You're showing 5,200 pounds, the inspector said. "That's 15,000 over what your manifest states." Trevor felt his stomach drop. 15,000 pounds, nearly 8 tons. "That's impossible. I was weighed in Shreveport at 42.8. I haven't picked up anything." They weighed him again. Same result. The inspector examined the cargo more closely, the machinery wrapped in heavy canvas tarps. "What exactly is this equipment?" "Boring machinery. Industrial drilling components." Trevor showed him the manifest, the Shreveport weigh station receipt time-stamped 2 hours earlier. The inspector's confusion matched Trevor's. Weight doesn't just appear. They examined the flatbed, looking for any explanation. Hidden compartments, additional cargo somehow concealed. Nothing. The boring equipment was exactly what it appeared to be, and it was impossible for it to have gained 15,000 pounds during a 2-hour drive. "I'm going to let you continue," the inspector finally said, "but get this load weighed again soon. Something's wrong with one of these scales." Trevor drove away, deeply unsettled. He pulled into a commercial truck stop 50 miles later and used their certified scale. The weight had increased again, 400 pounds. In 3 hours, his 12-ton load had somehow gained over 10 tons. The truck was struggling now, even on flat highway. The engine temperature ran hot. Fuel consumption had doubled. Trevor could feel the additional weight in every gear change, every press of the accelerator. The physics were undeniable. His truck was carrying substantially more mass than it had started with. He pulled over at a rest area and approached the cargo. The boring equipment sat exactly as loaded, chains tight, tarps secure. But when Trevor placed his hand on the canvas, he felt something that made his skin crawl. Vibration. The machinery was vibrating with a deep subsonic frequency that seemed to resonate in his chest cavity. He partially unwrapped the load, revealing dark metal machinery with complex drilling bits and hydraulic components. Everything looked normal until he noticed the drill bits were slowly rotating, not spinning but turning with glacial slowness as if powered by some internal mechanism. The equipment was supposedly unpowered, just dead weight being transported. Yet it moved. Trevor grabbed his phone and called the shipping company. The dispatcher insisted the equipment was inactive, no internal power source, just mechanical components. "You're imagining it," she said. "Equipment doesn't move by itself." But it did. Trevor watched the drill bit complete one full rotation over the course of 5 minutes, the metal grinding with a sound almost below hearing. And with each rotation, the vibration intensified. The flatbed suspension groaned under increasing load. He got back in the cab and continued driving because stopping felt more dangerous than moving forward. Maybe distance would help. Maybe reaching the destination would end whatever was happening. The weight continued climbing. At the Oklahoma border, 71,600 pounds. In Wichita, 79,200 pounds. The truck was now carrying over 19 tons beyond its original load. The tires began to fail. The driver's side rear trailer tire blew first, shredding rubber across the highway. Trevor limped to a service center, where a mechanic looked at the tire and said, "This is worn like you've been hauling at maximum capacity for months, not hours." They replaced the tire. Trevor didn't mention the weight issue. What could he say that wouldn't sound insane? He continued north, the truck barely managing 50 miles per hour now, engine screaming in protest. Somewhere in South Dakota, around 2:00 a.m., Trevor stopped at a rest area and weighed the truck on a portable scale used by agricultural trucks. The readout climbed past 100,000 pounds before the scale's mechanism broke, unable to register additional weight. His 12-ton load now exceeded 50 tons. The flatbed's frame was bending. Trevor could see the structural deformation in his mirrors, the trailer sagging in the middle, metal warping under impossible compression. The boring equipment should have crushed through the deck, should have broken the chains, should have destroyed the entire rig. Instead, it just sat there, growing heavier. Drill bits rotating with that agonizing slowness. He couldn't continue. The truck wouldn't survive another mile. Trevor pulled off at a remote highway exit, found an empty industrial lot, and made the decision to abandon the load. He positioned the flatbed in the lot, disconnected the trailer, and drove away with just his tractor unit. The police found him 6 hours later waiting at a truck stop. They'd received reports of an abandoned, oversized load. The officer told Trevor that recovery crews were having difficulty. The trailer had sunk 8 inches into the asphalt lot, pressed down by a weight that seemed to increase the longer it sat. By the time specialized heavy lift equipment arrived, the boring machinery had pressed the flatbed completely flat. The trailer's frame pancaked against the ground. Soil engineers estimated the weight at over 200 tons, though no scale could confirm it. The machinery itself showed no damage, no explanation for the mass increase. The mining company denied ownership. The Shreveport shipping facility claimed no record of the load. Trevor's paperwork, manifest, weigh station receipts, all of it, disappeared from his cab during the investigation. Trevor lost his CDL over the abandoned load. No company would hire him after that incident. He works warehouse jobs now, nothing involving transport. But sometimes he drives past industrial equipment yards and sees boring machinery sitting idle. And he swears he can see the drill bits turning slowly, incrementally, gathering weight from somewhere beyond normal physics, waiting for the next truck to carry them toward whatever destination requires impossibly heavy cargo. Story number 4. The Hitchhiker Who Knew. Daniel Okoye had a strict no-hitchhiker policy, forged over 18 years driving long-haul routes across the American South. Too many risks, too many stories of drivers robbed or worse. But the woman standing on the shoulder of Highway 82 in Mississippi on the stormy night of October 19, 2020, looked genuinely desperate, drenched, no vehicle in sight, miles from any town. Against his better judgment, Daniel pulled over. She climbed into the cab, water streaming from her clothes, thanking him profusely. Her name was Rebecca, she said. Car broke down, phone dead, just needed a ride to the next town with a service station. Standard hitchhiker story. I really appreciate this, she said, settling into the passenger seat. Most people wouldn't stop, especially after what's going to happen. Daniel glanced at her. What's going to happen? The accident, Rebecca said, her tone oddly casual. In 47 minutes, mile marker 214, the guardrail fails, and you go into the ravine. A chill ran through Daniel's chest. That's not funny. I'm not joking. Rebecca looked at him directly, her eyes reflecting the dashboard lights strangely. You die at 11:43 p.m. I've seen it 3 times now. Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. This was why he didn't pick up hitchhikers. He started calculating how to safely remove her from his truck. I think you should get out at the next... You won't let me out, Rebecca interrupted. You never do, I tell you this. You think I'm crazy. You keep driving to prove me wrong, and then it happens exactly like I said. Mile marker 214, guardrail fails. You overcorrect, the trailer jackknifes, and you go over. How would you know that? Because I was there. I am there. I will be there. Rebecca spoke with the weariness of someone repeating a memorized script. This is my 4th time on this road tonight. Same storm, same truck, same conversation. I keep trying to warn drivers, and they keep dying anyway. Daniel wanted to dismiss this as drug-induced rambling, mental illness, some elaborate scam. But something in her tone, the exhaustion, the resignation, felt disturbingly genuine. If you know it happens, why are you on this road? I don't know. I was driving home, there was a flash of lightning, and then I was standing on the shoulder watching your truck approach, over and over 4 times now. Same night, same everything. Rebecca pulled out her phone, showed him the screen. The date and time display showed October 19, 2020, 10:56 p.m. It didn't change. The digits stayed frozen. Daniel checked his own phone, 10:56 p.m., ticking normally toward 10:57, the current time. You could have set that. Mile marker 201, Rebecca said, pointing ahead. The marker appeared in the headlights exactly as she indicated. In 6 miles, you'll pass a rest area. You'll consider pulling in but won't, because your schedule is tight. Mile marker 208, there's a dead deer on the shoulder. Mile marker 211, the rain intensifies significantly. They passed the rest area. Daniel felt the impulse to stop, but didn't. Schedule was tight, and he could make it to Jackson before stopping. Mile marker 208, a deer carcass, fresh exactly where she'd predicted. His mouth went dry. You're guessing, he said, voice wavering. You've driven this road before, you remember? Mile marker 214, Rebecca continued. The road curves slightly right. During this storm, water has undermined the guardrail's foundation. When you hit a puddle across both lanes, you'll brake instinctively. The trailer starts to slide. You compensate, but the weight distribution is wrong. Your load shifted slightly back at mile marker 195. You felt it but didn't think it was significant. The combination of slide and shifted load pushes you toward the rail. It gives way. You drop 60 feet into Black Creek Ravine. Death is instantaneous, Daniel. The steering column enters your chest. She knew his name. He hadn't told her his name. Mile marker 211. The rain became a deluge, exactly as predicted, visibility dropping to nearly zero. Daniel's heart hammered. This couldn't be real. Precognition, time loops, whatever this was, it violated reality. But the evidence kept mounting. So what do I do? Daniel asked, surprising himself. He was actually considering this madness. I don't know, Rebecca admitted. The first driver panicked, accelerated, lost control before reaching 214. The second pulled over and waited, but a semi lost control and crashed into him. The third tried turning around. He made it the farthest, almost to mile marker 220, before a different accident. Different circumstances, same result. They all die between 11:41 and 11:46 p.m. That's impossible. Yet here we are, again. Rebecca's voice carried infinite sadness. I think I died on this road too. Maybe I'm the reason. Maybe I caused the original accident that created this loop. Maybe I'm being punished by repeating it, forced to watch drivers die because I couldn't save myself. Mile marker 213 emerged from the rain. 1 mile to the predicted accident site. Daniel's speedometer read 60 miles per hour, exactly 1 minute away. His clock showed 11:42 p.m. He made a decision. Hold on. Daniel downshifted aggressively, hitting the Jake brake to slow the truck without relying on wheel brakes. The engine roar filled the cab as speed dropped to 40, then 30. The trailer stabilized, its momentum arrested well before the curve. Mile marker 214 approached. The road curved right as Rebecca had described. Daniel kept the speed at 25, both hands firm on the wheel, eyes scanning for the puddle. There, a sheet of water across both lanes illuminated by his headlights. He steered through it dead center, maintaining steady throttle, no braking. The wheels hydroplaned for a sickening moment, the trailer beginning its slide, but the reduced speed meant reduced force. The truck wobbled but held its line. They passed the guardrail. Daniel glimpsed it in his mirrors, a section visibly sagging, the posts leaning outward, exactly as Rebecca predicted. If he'd been at highway speed, if the trailer had been sliding harder. Mile marker 215. They were through. Daniel exhaled, hands shaking, pulling onto the shoulder. The clock read 11:44 p.m. Rebecca stared ahead, her expression unreadable. We made it, Daniel said. You broke the loop. You saved. He turned to look at her. The passenger seat was empty, completely empty. No water on the seat, no evidence anyone had been there. Her phone wasn't on the dashboard where she'd shown him. The cab smelled only of diesel and air freshener. Daniel scrambled for his CB radio, needing to tell someone, anyone, what had happened. The radio crackled with a weather update. Severe thunderstorm warning for Highway 82 in Mississippi has been extended until midnight. Drivers should exercise extreme caution, particularly near mile marker 214, where guardrail damage has been reported. He sat in the idling truck, rain hammering the roof, trying to process what had occurred. Had Rebecca been real? A ghost? A psychological manifestation of his subconscious noticing the dangers his conscious mind missed? Daniel pulled back onto the highway, continuing toward Jackson. At mile marker 220, his headlights caught something at the roadside. A car, older model sedan, wrapped around a tree. The wreck looked years old, paint faded, windows shattered and vegetation growing through the chassis. A rusted license plate was barely visible. Daniel stopped, grabbed his flashlight, and approached. The plate was from 2016. Inside the wreck, a woman's purse lay on the passenger side floor, leather rotted and moldy. He found a driver's license inside. Rebecca Sims. The photo matched the hitchhiker. The license had expired October 19, 2016, exactly 4 years ago. Daniel reported the wreck to authorities, but investigation found it had already been documented years prior. Rebecca Sims had died on October 19, 2016, losing control on Highway 82 during a storm. Her body had been recovered. The wreck had been processed, but every October 19th, during storms, some drivers on Highway 82 report picking up a wet hitchhiker near mile marker 201. She tells them about an accident at mile marker 214. Some drivers heed the warning and survive, others don't, and their accidents get attributed to weather conditions. Daniel drives that route frequently. He's never seen Rebecca again. But he always slows at mile marker 214, always remembers the hitchhiker who knew, and he wonders if somewhere in some version of that night she's still standing on the shoulder in the rain, trying to save the drivers she couldn't warn when she was alive, trapped in an eternal loop of October 19, 2020, reliving the night of her death over and over 4 years after she died. Story number 5. The rest stop with no exit. Carlos Medina pulled into the rest area on Interstate 40 in New Mexico around 3 a.m., October 8, 2017. 15 years of overnight hauls had trained him to recognize his body's warning signs: heavy eyelids, drifting attention, the dangerous micro-sleeps. The rest stop appeared exactly when he needed it, a standard highway facility with parking slots for trucks and cars, restroom building, picnic areas. He parked in the truck section, set his alarm for a 20-minute nap, and closed his eyes. When the alarm woke him, he felt refreshed enough to continue. He started the engine, checked his mirrors, and pulled toward the exit ramp. The exit ramp led directly back into the rest area parking lot. Carlos blinked, confused. He'd clearly turned toward the exit marked Interstate 40 East, the signs illuminated by his headlights. But somehow he'd completed a circle and ended up back where he started, his truck now facing a different direction in the same parking lot. He tried again, more carefully this time, watching every turn. Out of the parking slot, follow the painted arrows, turn right toward the exit ramp, accelerate up the ramp toward the highway, and emerge back into the rest area, approaching from a different angle. Carlos stopped the truck, his stomach tightening with an anxiety he couldn't name. Rest areas don't work like this. The geography was impossible. He pulled out his phone, no signal. The GPS showed his location on Interstate 40 at a rest area between Tucumcari and Santa Rosa, but when he tried to load map details, the app couldn't connect. He noticed other vehicles in the lot, a sedan, a minivan, 2 other semi-trucks. None of them were running. All appeared abandoned, though some looked relatively new. Carlos climbed down from his cab and walked toward the nearest semi, an older Peterbilt. The door was unlocked. Inside, the keys hung in the ignition. Logbook open to a date from 2009. The driver's seat held a jacket with a wallet in the pocket. Carlos opened it. License, credit cards, $47 in cash. The license? Photo showed a man in his 50s. According to the logbook, the driver had stopped for a rest break 8 years ago. Carlos checked the other vehicles systematically. The sedan's registration was from 2014, the minivans from 2003. The second semi had a logbook entry dated 6 months ago. All the vehicles were abandoned, keys present, personal items left behind, but no drivers, no passengers, no signs of struggle or forced departure. The rest area itself was maintained, grass mowed, restrooms clean, lights functioning. But the restroom was empty. The vending machines were stocked but wouldn't accept money. The payphone, an actual payphone which Carlos hadn't seen in years, had no dial tone. He walked to where the entrance ramp should be, where traffic from the interstate would exit into the rest area. There was no ramp, Just empty landscape, desert scrub extending into darkness. The rest area existed in isolation, disconnected from any highway, despite the signs and pavement indicating otherwise. Carlos walked the entire perimeter. The rest area was perhaps 3 acres, clearly defined by its paved surfaces and lighting. Beyond the lights, darkness, not desert darkness, where starlight and moonlight provide some illumination. Absolute darkness, like a physical wall of void at the edge of the facility's lights. He threw a rock into that darkness. It vanished without sound. No impact, no clatter of stone hitting ground. Just silence. Back at his truck, Carlos found another driver sitting on the steps of the other modern semi. A young woman, maybe 30, wearing a company shirt from a regional freight carrier. "You're new?" she said. Not a question. "How long have you been here?" Carlos asked. "Subjectively? 6 hours? Objectively? I don't know. My logbook says I stopped here on April 3rd. My phone says it's still April 3rd, but I've watched the sun rise and set 3 times." Her name was Jennifer. She'd pulled in for a rest break, experienced the same impossible exit loop, and had been trapped since. "Time doesn't work right here," she explained. "Sometimes minutes pass like hours, sometimes hours pass like minutes. My phone's clock resets to 3:47 a.m. periodically. That's when I arrived. I sleep, but I don't get hungry. I should have needed fuel, food, water. I don't need anything." Carlos checked his own phone. 3:22 a.m., the time he'd arrived. He watched the digits tick to 3:23, then suddenly jumped back to 3:22. The time was looping, refusing to progress beyond his arrival moment. "Have you tried just driving through the darkness?" Carlos asked. "Yes. The pavement continues for exactly 0.3 miles in every direction from the rest area center. Then it ends. Not crumbles, not fades. Ends. Clean edge, like someone cut the universe with scissors. Beyond that edge, your vehicle won't move forward. The engine runs, wheels turn, but you stay stationary. Back up and you can move again. Forward, you're locked." Carlos spent what felt like hours testing everything Jennifer had tried. Every exit attempt led back to the parking lot. Every route into the darkness hit that invisible barrier. The rest area's physical space was fixed, immutable, disconnected from normal geography. Other drivers appeared periodically. An older man in a vintage truck from the 1970s, his logbook indicating he'd stopped in 1978. A couple in the minivan who believed it was still 2003. They were temporal echoes, Jennifer explained, appearing and disappearing according to rules no one understood. Sometimes you could interact with them, sometimes they couldn't perceive you. "The rest area collects drivers," Jennifer said. "We're not the first. Look at the restroom walls." Carlos went to the men's room and found the stalls covered in scratched messages. Names, dates, desperate notes. "Trapped since 1984, John Markson. If you read this, tell my family I didn't abandon them. Teresa Vole, 1991. Dozens of messages spanning decades, some scratched into paint, others into the metal panels themselves. He added his own. Carlos Medina, October 8, 2017, Interstate 40, rest area. Something wrong with this place. Jennifer showed him something else. A gap in the darkness. Not an exit, but a thin seam where 2 sections of void didn't quite meet. Through it, barely visible, was a flicker of something. Maybe highway lights, maybe another reality. It appeared randomly, never in the same location twice, never open long. "I've seen 4 drivers make it through gaps," Jennifer said. "They run for it when it appears, squeeze through before it closes. I don't know if they actually escape or just get swallowed by something worse." They waited together, walking the perimeter, searching for another gap. Carlos's phone still read 3:22 a.m. He'd been in the rest area for subjective hours, but time refused to advance. He wasn't tired, wasn't hungry. The truck's fuel gauge stayed at 3/4 full. Then Jennifer grabbed his arm. There, a vertical seam in the darkness, barely 18 inches wide, flickering with light from the other side. Through it, Carlos glimpsed highway pavement, moving traffic, the real Interstate 40. "Go," Jennifer said. "It won't last. Come with me. It's too narrow, one person, go." Carlos ran, not letting himself think, and squeezed through the gap. It felt like pushing through something gelatinous and resistant, a membrane between spaces. Then he was through, stumbling onto a highway shoulder, real asphalt under his feet. Traffic roared past. The rest area was visible behind him. A normal rest area with normal vehicles and people walking to restrooms. His truck was parked in the lot. He could see it, but when he tried to walk back to get it, he couldn't. Some invisible barrier prevented him from re-entering the rest area. He could see Jennifer standing in the parking lot waving, though from this side she looked translucent, like a projection. Carlos hitched a ride with another trucker, reported his abandoned vehicle, filed a police report about the strange rest area. Authorities investigated and found his truck parked normally, keys in the ignition, but the rest area cameras showed Carlos pulling in and immediately walking away from his vehicle, crossing the barrier onto the highway shoulder and hitchhiking away. No time gap, no other drivers, no Jennifer. His truck was returned to him. The fuel gauge read 3/4 full. His phone showed dozens of missed calls spanning 8 days. He'd been missing for over a week, though subjectively he'd experienced only hours. The logbook in his truck showed the entry for October 8, 3:22 a.m., and then nothing. Carlos drives Interstate 40 regularly. He always passes that rest area. It exists, it's real, it's on the maps. But he never stops there. Sometimes late at night he sees trucks parked in its lot that look abandoned, left too long in the same spot. He wonders if those drivers are trapped in whatever pocket dimension he escaped, watching their fuel gauges stay frozen while time loops endlessly at 3:22 a.m. And sometimes he swears he sees Jennifer standing near the entrance, translucent and waving, trying to warn incoming drivers before they pull off the highway into the rest stop with no exit. Story number 6. The voice on the CB. Mitchell Torres had been hauling automotive parts on the Detroit to Indianapolis corridor for 11 years when the voice appeared on his CB radio. January 14, 2019, around 1:30 a.m. somewhere on Interstate 69 south of Fort Wayne. The highway was empty, snowfall creating hypnotic patterns in his headlights, the kind of conditions where a driver's mind could wander into dangerous territory. The CB had been quiet for hours. Most drivers use cell phones now. The old Channel 19 chatter, a relic of previous decades. Mitchell kept his radio on more from habit than expectation, the static of familiar white noise. Then a voice cut through, crystal clear despite the absence of any other signal. "Mitchell, you need to slow down." He jerked in his seat, instantly alert. The voice was male, calm, speaking with odd formality. Mitchell grabbed the handset. "Who is this? How do you know my name?" "You're approaching a bridge. Ice formation on the deck. At your current speed, you'll lose traction. Slow to 45. Mitchell's instinct was to dismiss this as a prank, but something in the voice's certainty made him check his speedometer. 62 miles per hour. Against rational judgment, he reduced speed to 45. 30 seconds later, his headlights revealed a bridge, and as his wheels touched the deck, he felt the subtle slip of black ice under his tires. At 62, he would have lost control. "Who are you?" Mitchell asked again. "What channel is this?" "Channel 19, the voice replied. "I'm monitoring your route. There are additional hazards ahead. Stay attentive." Mitchell checked the CB. It was set to channel 19. But CB radio had a range of maybe 10 miles in good conditions, and he'd seen no other trucks for the past hour. The voice's signal was impossibly strong. No static, no fade, like it was transmitting from inside his cab. Where are you transmitting from? Your truck, from here. I'm speaking to you from here, Mitchell. The phrasing was strange, almost mechanical. In approximately 4 miles, a deer will cross from the right shoulder. Be prepared to brake. Mitchell's hands tightened on the wheel. This was insane. Prank? Hacker? Some new digital CB technology he didn't understand? But 4 miles later, precisely as predicted, a deer bounded across the highway. Mitchell braked smoothly, avoiding it easily because he'd been forewarned. "Thank you," Mitchell said, uncertainty in his voice. "Are you some kind of safety system?" "I am the recording," the voice said. "I am what remains after the accident. I am trying to prevent." "Prevent what?" "Your accident. The one that occurs at mile marker 278. The one where we die. I am transmitting from that moment, trying to reach backward to change the outcome." Ice crawled through Mitchell's veins. "This isn't funny. I'm not joking. At mile marker 278, in 23 minutes at your current speed, there is a disabled vehicle in your lane. No lights, no warning. You don't see it until too late. The impact kills you instantly. I know because I experienced it. I am you, Mitchell, speaking from the moment of death, trying to warn my past self." Mitchell wanted to pull over, wanted to stop and think, but the voice continued. "Don't stop. Stopping creates a different accident. A truck jackknifes behind you. The outcome is the same. You must continue, but you must be warned. You must be ready. This is impossible. Time doesn't work that way. You can't communicate backward. Yet I am. Perhaps death creates a loop. Perhaps consciousness, at the moment of termination, can reach backward through the electrical pathways of the brain, through the final firing of synapses, and that signal somehow propagates through the CB radio because that's what I was using when it happened. I don't understand the mechanism. I only know I've been replaying this route, speaking these warnings for what feels like forever." Mitchell checked the CB again. Still channel 19. Still impossibly clear signal. His phone showed 1:47 a.m., service weak but present. He tried calling 911 to report the supposed disabled vehicle ahead, but the call wouldn't connect. The voice on the radio remained the only communication. "Mile marker 268, the voice said. 10 miles to the accident site. You need to move to the right lane, trust me. If you're me from the future, from the moment of death, why don't you just tell me to turn around? Why keep going toward it? Because I tried that in previous iterations. Turning around leads to different accidents with the same fatal outcome. Running from the event creates the event through different means. I've experienced 17 different deaths on this highway tonight. The only path that might work is going forward with full knowledge, making the precise adjustments needed to navigate what's coming." Mitchell moved to the right lane, hands trembling. The logical part of his brain screamed that this was psychological breakdown, fatigue-induced hallucination, carbon monoxide poisoning, anything but literal communication from his own death. But everything the voice predicted had been accurate. "Mile marker 274, the voice continued. 4 miles. When you reach 278, there will be a white SUV sideways across both lanes. Disabled, no hazard lights. The driver is slumped over the wheel. Stroke or heart attack, the police report will say. You need to brake beginning at marker 277, reduce speed to 30. Use your spotlight to scan ahead. The extra visibility will give you time to stop. What happens if I succeed? What happens to you?" Silence. Then, "I don't know. Perhaps I cease. Perhaps the loop breaks. Perhaps this is my purgatory, endlessly trying to save myself, never knowing if I succeed because success would mean I never die and therefore never exist to send the warning. A temporal paradox with no resolution." Mitchell's throat tightened. "What's my daughter's name?" "Emma. She's 7. Her birthday is June 12th. She likes soccer and hates broccoli. You promised to take her to Cedar Point this summer. You won't keep that promise if you die tonight." Tears blurred Mitchell's vision. No one knew those details. No hacker, no prankster could know Emma's birthday or the Cedar Point promise he'd made just yesterday. This was either impossibly sophisticated surveillance or the voice was exactly what it claimed to be. Mile marker 275, 3 miles. "I'm scared," Mitchell admitted. "I know, I was scared, I am scared. Fear is the constant state of this existence. But you have something I didn't, foreknowledge. You can survive this, Mitchell. You can see Emma grow up. I'm giving you what I couldn't have, a chance." Mile marker 276, 2 miles. Mitchell activated every light on his truck, headlights on high beam, fog lights, the spotlight mounted on the A-pillar. He reduced speed to 40, then 35. The snowfall continued, flakes swirling in the light beams. Mile marker 277, 1 mile. He shifted down, engine braking, speed dropping to 30 exactly. His spotlight swept the highway ahead in careful arcs. The CB remained silent now, just the faint static bass line. Mitchell's heart hammered against his ribs, then he saw it, a pale shape resolving from the snow. A white SUV driver's door facing him, completely blocking both lanes, no lights, no warning. At 60 miles per hour in these conditions, he had perhaps 2 seconds to react. Not enough. The collision would have been catastrophic. At 30 miles per hour, with full alert and spotlight scanning, Mitchell had time. He stopped the truck 100 yards short, set his hazard lights, and grabbed his emergency triangles. He approached the SUV carefully and found exactly what the voice had described. A driver slumped over the wheel, unresponsive. Mitchell called 911, provided the location, rendered what aid he could until emergency services arrived. The driver survived. Stroke, the paramedics confirmed, but caught early enough for treatment because Mitchell had stopped to help. If there had been a collision, both of them would have died. Mitchell returned to his truck as the ambulance departed. He picked up the CB handset. "Are you still there?" Static. No response. "Did it work? Did I break the loop?" Silence. Just the normal static of an empty channel. Mitchell completed his route to Indianapolis, delivered his load, and drove home. He took Emma to Cedar Point that summer as promised. He drives Interstate 69 regularly, but has never again heard the voice on Channel 19. But sometimes, late at night on empty highways, he leaves his CB radio on, and he wonders if somewhere in some collapsed timeline that no longer exists, a version of himself is still transmitting from the moment of death, speaking warnings into the void, trying to save a past that has already been rewritten, trapped in an eternal loop of the last moment of consciousness, forever reaching backward to prevent an accident that now never happened. Story number 7, The Convoy to Nowhere. Anthony DeLuca first saw the convoy on Highway 50 in Nevada, that stretch they call the loneliest road in America. It was 2 a.m. on July 3, 2016, and he'd been hauling electronics from Sacramento to Denver. The highway was empty, hours since he'd seen another vehicle, when headlights appeared in his mirrors. Not just one truck, 7 of them running close together. A tight convoy configuration that professional drivers rarely used outside of organized protests or funeral processions. They approached from behind at steady speed, not attempting to pass, just maintaining position about 100 yards back. Anthony could see them clearly in his mirrors. 7 identical trucks, same model Kenworth T680s, same dark blue color scheme, running with only their marker lights visible. No company logos, no dot numbers, completely anonymous. The formation was unnervingly precise, each truck maintaining exact distance from the others. His CB radio crackled. "Lead vehicle, you're clear to join the convoy. Take position 8. Anthony grabbed the handset. "I'm not part of any convoy. Who is this?" "Acknowledge position 8. Follow protocol Delta 7. Maintain current speed and heading. I don't know what Protocol Delta 7 is. Identify yourself. Static. The 7 trucks maintained their position, following him through the Nevada darkness. Anthony tried changing speed, accelerating to 75, then slowing to 55. The convoy matched his speed exactly, maintaining that 100-yard gap. He tried his cell phone. No signal, not unusual on Highway 50, which crossed vast empty spaces between tiny towns. The CB was his only communication, and the convoy had gone silent again. Anthony noticed something strange about the truck's headlights. They didn't illuminate the road ahead of them. The lights seemed to stop a few feet from each truck's bumper, as if the beams hit something invisible and couldn't penetrate further. Yet the trucks navigated perfectly, never drifting from their lanes. At the town of Eureka, Anthony pulled off the highway into the only gas station, thinking the convoy would continue past. Instead, all 7 trucks followed him off the exit, pulling into the gas station lot and arranging themselves in a semicircle around his truck, blocking him in. The gas station was closed, dark, a single streetlight illuminating the cracked pavement. Anthony climbed down from his cab, every instinct screaming danger. He approached the nearest blue truck. The cab was empty, no driver. The engine was running, instrument panel lit, but the driver's seat was vacant. Anthony checked the next truck, and the next. All 7 were empty, running autonomously, yet they'd navigated the exit and parked with precision. "This is a violation of convoy protocol," the CB in his own truck crackled. "Return to your vehicle. Resume formation." Anthony ran to his cab. "What convoy? Who are you? What is this?" "You were selected for position 8. The convoy requires 8 vehicles for Phase 2 operations. Return to the highway. Maintain heading 092 degrees. Do not deviate." "I'm not going anywhere until you explain." The 7 trucks started moving. Simultaneously, in perfect coordination, they tightened their circle around Anthony's truck. He was boxed in, empty trucks maneuvering themselves without human operators, metal closing in. Anthony jumped into his cab, started the engine, and pulled forward through the only gap, accelerating back toward the highway. The convoy followed, falling into formation behind him again. 7 empty trucks, running in the middle of the night, following him across the Nevada desert. Anthony tried calling 911 when his phone briefly showed signal. The dispatcher seemed skeptical. "You're reporting empty trucks following you? Sir, are you impaired?" "They're right behind me, 7 of them. Check the highway cameras." "Sir, Highway 50 doesn't have continuous camera coverage. I can send a patrol to check, but the nearest unit is 40 minutes away. Can you provide the truck's plate numbers or DOT identifiers?" Anthony looked in his mirrors. The trucks had no visible plates. The rear doors showed no markings whatsoever, just blank blue paint. "They don't have any identification." "That's a federal violation. Maintain distance from these vehicles and proceed to the nearest town. We'll dispatch an officer." But the convoy didn't give him a choice. The lead truck, the one directly behind Anthony, began closing distance. Slowly, steadily, the gap reduced from 100 yards to 50, then 30. Anthony accelerated. So did the convoy. Highway 50 stretched ahead, empty and straight, allowing dangerous speeds. Anthony pushed to 85 miles per hour. The empty trucks matched him effortlessly. At 90, they were still there, maintaining formation, running faster than any loaded truck should safely travel. Position 8, reduce speed. Excessive velocity detected. Comply with protocol. "Leave me alone," Anthony screamed into the CB. "I don't want to be part of your convoy." "Selection is not voluntary. Route assignment requires 8 vehicles. You were designated position 8 at mile marker 112. Deviation from assignment is not permitted." Mile marker 112, that was where he'd first noticed the convoy, where they'd appeared behind him. Had he been selected randomly? Or was there something specific about his truck, his cargo, his route? The convoy began a new maneuver. The 7 trucks spread out, moving into parallel formation, 3 in the lane beside Anthony, 2 ahead of him, 2 behind. They boxed him in, controlling his speed, his direction, preventing any exit. When Anthony tried to brake, the trucks behind closed distance, forcing him to maintain speed. When he tried to change lanes, the trucks beside him blocked the movement. He was being herded. The convoy directed him off Highway 50 onto a smaller road, an unmarked turnoff that Anthony had never noticed in dozens of trips across this route. The pavement was old but maintained, leading north into absolute darkness. No lights, no buildings, no indication of destination. "Where are we going?" Anthony demanded. "Designated facility ETA 27 minutes, maintain current speed and heading." Anthony considered jumping from the moving truck, letting it crash. But at 70 miles per hour, that was suicide. He was trapped in a convoy of ghost trucks being driven toward an unknown facility in the Nevada desert. The road continued for endless miles through flat darkness. Eventually, lights appeared ahead. A large industrial complex surrounded by high fencing, illuminated by powerful floodlights. Guard towers, though Anthony saw no guards. The convoy approached a massive gate that opened automatically. Inside was a loading facility unlike any Anthony had seen. Warehouse buildings with dozens of bay doors, all open, all lit. And trucks, hundreds of trucks, all identical blue Kenworth T680s, all parked in perfect rows, all apparently empty. The convoy directed Anthony to Bay 47. The 7 trucks that had escorted him peeled off, parking in designated spots, with mathematical precision. Anthony stopped at the bay, uncertain what else to do. The CB. "Exit your vehicle. Proceed to processing." Anthony didn't move. After 5 minutes, figures emerged from the warehouse. They wore unmarked coveralls, faces obscured by welding-style helmets with darkened visors. They approached his truck with mechanical movements, opened his trailer, and began unloading his cargo of electronics. One figure climbed up to his cab door and opened it. Up close, Anthony could see no face behind the visor, just darkness. It gestured for him to exit. When Anthony shook his head, the figure reached for him with hands that seemed wrong, too many joints in the fingers. Anthony kicked out, catching the figure in the chest. It fell backward but made no sound, no reaction. It simply stood up and reached again. Anthony climbed over to the passenger side and jumped out, running across the facility. He reached the main gate. It was closed. The fence was 15 feet high, topped with razor wire. No escape. Behind him, figures emerged from various buildings, dozens of them walking in his direction with that mechanical gait. Anthony found an equipment shed, slipped inside, and hid behind stacked pallets. Through a grimy window, he watched the figures methodically search, moving in coordinated patterns like programmed machines. Hours passed. Eventually, he heard truck engines starting, many of them a rumbling chorus. Through the window, he saw convoys forming, groups of 7 to 8 trucks pulling out through the gate in tight formation, heading back toward the highway. The facility was emptying for the night. When silence finally returned, Anthony emerged. The facility was deserted. His truck remained at Bay 47, now fully unloaded. He got in, started the engine, and drove for the gate. It opened automatically. He navigated back to Highway 50, running at maximum speed until he reached Ely, the next town. He abandoned his truck at a police station and told them everything. Officers investigated, found his truck with its cargo missing, but no industrial facility where Anthony described. Satellite imagery showed no buildings, no fences, just empty desert. His employer terminated him for abandoning the load. The cargo was never recovered. Investigation found no evidence of the blue convoy. No other truckers reported seeing such vehicles. No highway cameras captured them. But Anthony knows what he saw. And sometimes on long-haul forums, other drivers share stories. Blue Kenworth T680s appearing in convoys following isolated trucks on empty highways, trying to add them as position 8 or other numbers. Some drivers report escaping, others report being herded to facilities that aren't on any map. Anthony doesn't drive long-haul anymore. He works local deliveries, day shift only, never on remote highways. Because he knows the convoys are still out there running their programmed routes through the Nevada desert, looking for position 8, position 12, whatever number their mysterious protocol requires. Empty trucks with empty cabs, following orders from something that isn't human, herding drivers toward facilities that exist in the hours between midnight and dawn. Facilities that process cargo and maybe drivers too for purposes no one understands.